Hello, everyone. Benjamin Lindsay here, managing editor at Backstage, and you're joining me as part of our Backstage Live interview series, which, of course, is part of The Slate. As you all know by now, The Slate is our ongoing video series you can watch from anywhere to learn all you need to know about the craft and business of acting from casting directors, industry insiders, and, of course, actors through Instagram takeovers, Instagram Live interviews, such as this one, live stream seminars, and more. For more on The Slate and to see the latest schedule of what's coming up this week and next, go to backstage.com/magazine. Today we are very lucky to be joined by Jonathan Tucker. He is currently the star of the hit sci-fi drama Debris, which is currently airing on Mondays on NBC. Previously, he starred on the acclaimed series Kingdom, which is available to stream on Netflix, Justified, Snowfall, City on a Hill, and more. An actor and leading man with over 20 years experience. We're really going to be diving into it all today, so very much looking forward to it. Let me see if he's joined us and I can send a request for him to jump on camera. Jonathan, I see you here, so one moment, and Hey, Jonathan, how's it going?
So proud of myself for making this work technologically.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the hurdles of virtual interviews, right? I'm glad that you could figure it out, that you could join us today. How are you doing?
I'm great. It's been a long time being an actor, so getting the opportunity to talk to people who are right there in it is it's to whom much is given, much is required.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what we're all about here at Backstage. So I do appreciate you sharing your time with us. Congrats on this series, Debris, though. I know we're in the midst of season 1 right now. What's it been like filming it over the last year? I'm sure that, during production, you were kind of caught during the current circumstances of the quarantine and the pandemic. What was that experience like for you?
I think it has underscored something that I already knew was true, which is that nothing really matters other than what you're capturing on the day when the cameras are rolling. It's critical to be kind to people, to be respectful of people's processes, to show up with enthusiasm and excitement in your heart and in your body. But you have to recognize that when the cameras turn over is what people are going to see and remember as an audience. And there's so many extraneous factors, from somebody standing in your eye line to having somebody cut you off in traffic that morning, to this not being what you might have expected, to a department failing you in some respect, and that the only thing that you need to, that none of that can influence the work that you're doing. You can't be grumpy because something happened, or excited because you got some offer for some other job. You've got to be present in what's happening. So, and I've always known that's the case. It's particularly acute with like a sex scene, because there's so much stuff going on and it's so unnatural. And you've got to remember, hold on a second, first take, right out the gun, right out the gate. You've got to make this magical and not feel like it's as artificial as it is. And when you recognize that the pandemic is bringing all of these other sort of protocols to set that you hadn't anticipated, that people aren't going to remember about the masks on and off during rehearsal, and who's in A zone and B zone and what your testing was like. None of that really is going to come into play. So that's kind of something that I think I've taken away from shooting during this time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as you say, you've been an actor for years, so you're kind of practiced in being able to put those external blinders up and focus on the work. But especially in a year like this one, it's an added challenge and a reminder to be able to share the experience and be in the moment with your co-stars. Certainly.
Right now in our conversation, as my kids are screaming to go down to bed, and I'm realizing that I don't think on Instagram Live there's a mute button where I can kind of toggle between mute. So you're getting the the 2-year-old screaming about their bedtime right now as well. But I'm connected. I'm focused to you.
Right.
Getting through it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I can hear the kids, but absolutely no problem. Again, just kind of the nature of these digital virtual interviews. Tell me a bit about this character, Brian, and your show Debris. How is it that you first came into the fold, and what made you want to sign on to such a cool project?
Well, I've been really interested. I like this Brian Koppelman podcast at the moment. I always kind of get something good from his interviews, and he was talking to Paul Schrader, who did Taxi Driver and
Mm-hmm.
a handful of other really well-known films, particularly in the 70s. And they were talking about this idea of transcendental directing, acting, writing, and the idea is how far back can you lean in your performance or in your work,
Mm-hmm.
which forces the audience to, or entices them, invites them to lean forward. You have to kind of calibrate this, because if you lean too far back in the performance, the audience comes in and they go, there's not enough here for me. But if you can get it to a point where they are leaning forward and they're able to paint their own experiences into the work versus being told how to feel about a scene or an emotion, it becomes a much more compelling project. It certainly becomes more compelling for me as an actor.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been interested in that. And I found that when I was reading and I've been playing Brian in Debris, I've been playing with this idea. And, it sometimes is a little scary, particularly for leadership or executives, not particularly on my show, but I've seen this be, where they're like, they want more to happen,
Mm-hmm.
more pizzazz. And you can get to that place if you've earned it. But I've been excited to play with that with Brian, and Joel's been supportive of a character that will be slowly revealed over the course of the first season.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a character that has got some significant PTSD, had served overseas, Afghanistan, that's kind of come back and compartmentalized all that has this mission now that gives him a sense of purpose. But and when I read the script, more than just the script, I was interested in sci-fi. I was interested in Joel, who worked on Lost and Fringe and Almost Human. This is one of those things where the cross between traditional business and the entertainment business, you can start to find those parallels. The best investors invest in people.
Mm-hmm.
Investing in Joel. And this was a kind of a project that had a number of key elements to it. Being on NBC, having that big platform, having Joel, sci-fi, and then a role that would allow me to kind of unspool itself over 13 episodes versus kind of coming out the bat. To see, like, Jay Colino was a privilege on Kingdom, and I feel like I certainly know I can do that. I think people recognize I can play a character with that grandiosity. This gave me an opportunity to do something quieter.
Yeah, absolutely. And with something like Brian, then you're talking about how it unspools over a full 13-season episode. You have the backstory of the PTSD and all that. Are you building any of that backstory yourself? And how do you kind of go about getting into a skin, building the character from the ground up? What does that process look like for you?
Well, you think about the Susan Batson book, Truth, where she talks about your public persona, your fatal flaw, your personal need. Kind of answer those 3 questions. I'm very interested in this idea that the body knows more than the mind does.
Mm-hmm.
An Alexander technique is a great way into that. I work with a guy named Jean-Louis Rodrigue out here in Los Angeles with Alexander and animal work. And then I've been working with a coach named John Markland for a long time, who kind of ties together all of these disparate kind of disciplines or ways into the character, and ties them into this fun Freudian subconscious work, dream work, and we have very long, intimate, deep conversations about that look much more like a therapy session than
Hmm.
than an acting session. But it brings you back to the fact that one of the privileges of being an actor is that it is an all-encompassing experience for your life. And the better you know yourself and understand yourself and what you're capable of, the more you can eliminate fear from yourself, so that it's not interfering with your choices from your intuition and your
Hmm.
your gut instinct. um, the more successful you can be in your life, and as an actor, as a father, as a husband. And so I've found that working with these sort of different people and approaching it from multiple, building a character from multiple places, has been a kind of the way in which I find a reliable method to getting to
Hmm.
the. And if you don't have something reliable, then you're not going to. Then you're always at the whim of, like, I hope the wardrobe person finds the right boots, or I hope I hope I get that. I hope the prop guy gives me the right car. And as soon as I feel the car, then I'll know the character.
Hmm. Hmm.
Like, it's not fair to all of the people that are putting in so much time and money into the production for you to just happen to figure it out. You've got to have a real crucible in which you can run these questions through, so that you have a consistent way in which to find and discover a character.
And was there a learning curve to that at all? Because I know you started. I mean, looking all the way back to the Virgin Suicides and the years leading up to that, you were working from a rather young age. Did you always treat acting from kind of a technique first perspective, or was that just as the years go on, you needed to re-examine ways to challenge yourself?
Yeah, no, I started working with a coach named Andrew McGarian early on in Los Angeles, and he's really kind of the foundation of my experience as an actor. And so it's always been about technique.
Yeah.
He used to always talk about, eh, you know, uh, uh, Tiger Woods' A game, for instance, his B game, his C game. He's worked so hard in technique that his C game, when everything's going wrong and he shows up with his C game, it's still better than most people's A game. That you always fall back on. That
Yeah.
you're only as good as your training. And but I think, you when you know better, you do better. You know better, you do better. I think you do that personally, as you kind of glean more wisdom about the world and about yourself.
Hmm.
You look back at certain decisions you made as a person or as a man, and you go, man, if I knew what I knew then. You know better, you do better. But I think that's also, in a professional sense. There's this Ira Glass quotation where he talks about creative people getting into the business, where they have a certain level of expectation that got them into the business. And
Hmm.
what's frustrating for most of them is that they know what their level of quality is, and they can recognize that their work is not meeting that. He says most people, he says, quit. But he suggests, or implores them not to quit, to just keep on producing work, because at a certain point, the quality of your work will become commensurate with your expectations the expectations of quality that got you into the business, your sense of
Yeah.
taste. And so I look back at kind of both my process and some of the work, and I'm not thrilled by it. But I having regrets is like one of the worst things you can have. So I know better, I do better, and I'm at a place now where I'm not at the whim of something or somebody else in terms of finding the character. What I get to be is at the whim of what's happening in the moment on the day as an actor.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
when you're prepared, that's what you get when you've put in the work. You get to be open to all of the elements that the world is providing you in that moment on that day.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I love that. Well, as a final question for you, then, kind of in line with that, a lot of our audience today is going to be kind of the working actors and creators of the world. What's one piece of advice that you would give kind of early career folks who are wanting to follow in your footsteps and in other actors' footsteps?
In your heart and your mind, uh, you have to bifurcate work and employment. So people often say, well, I haven't worked a lot, or I haven't worked in 6 months, or I don't have a lot of work under my belt. Or no. You can always be working. You can always get up as an actor and work, or as a filmmaker and work. You can, in any creative source, you can get up and work, whether it means you're going to a coffee shop with a notebook and ordering a 85-cent water, and just taking notes of people for a few hours of how they walk and how they move and hold space and hold utensils and communicate with each other. You can go to the zoo and look at animals. You can read plays. You can do scene work. You can be in class. Just because you haven't been employed, or you're not as employed as you want, doesn't have any bearing on whether you're working or not. And what you end up finding very quickly is you feel good when you've worked. You feel content. You feel satisfied as an actor. You go to bed and I go, I'm an actor. It reminds you, like, you are an actor. You are a filmmaker if you're actually doing something. And it's the same feeling you have when you put your head on the pillow after you've shot all day on a film set with a huge budget. Your body doesn't know the difference. Your heart doesn't know the difference. Young people in LA gotta be getting up and working as an actor, not just going to the audition and expecting that somehow the work comes from the result of the audition, which is not the satisfying experience of the room and the time that you have there, versus did I get a job offer or not. Nothing is crazier to me that when I talk to my theater friends, they come out of a show and they don't like walk out the back door and go, well, was the show successful I just did tonight? And they're doing 8 shows a week. Whatever. Was the show successful because I got a job offer when I walked out the stage door, or was it successful because I was in it? I was magical on the day. But all of my friends who are in theater and film and television, they come out of an audition and go, was the audition good or not based on whether I got the offer or not? Well, yo, dummy, that's not how this works. Like, that's not sustainable. It's not how this works. And you don't have to love every part of the process. I don't love reading lines, but memorizing lines. But what you get from all of that process is something that is intoxicating and scary and fun. It's being on top of a high dive with an audience and knowing that you've done it and you can stick this dive and taking the leap and being in the moment. That's what's exciting about being an actor.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a great note to leave our audience with today. Jonathan, I'm really excited to see what you do next and to see how the rest of this season of Debris turns out. Thank you for spending time with us. Thanks for the chat, and stay well.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thanks so much.
All right. Bye-bye.